Am I the a-hole for disowning my wife's daughter after she chose her mom's affair partner over me? I, 35 male, met my now soon-to-be ex-wife, 33 female, during uni 12 years ago. She already had kid when she was 19, but the dad left as soon as she started uni. We were dating for 3 months before I met her daughter, Lisa. I remember seeing her family for the first time. I was nervous meeting her parents, but when I saw a little girl beside her mom, I was confused. I asked her if that was her little sister or a cousin of hers, and her answer shocked me. When she told me that that's her daughter, I thought I misheard her or something. At first, I wanted to dump her for hiding something so crucial from me, but she kept on begging for me to stay, and eventually I relented. And soon enough, I started to fall in love with her daughter and wanted to be her father figure. Our bond grew stronger over the years, and in early 2019, before the pandemic hit, we got married. In late 2021, I adopted Lisa, and in early 2022, my wife gave birth to our son, Mark. After my son was born, my wife made a choice to stay at home for the time being, and I was completely fine with that. Everything was going perfectly until a few months ago. I started noticing my wife increasingly spending time with her friends. At the time, I didn't say anything since in my mind, being at home all day was probably eating at her, and I didn't want to seem controlling. The thing that made me suspicious was her constant texting and going out of the room for calls. She never did that for anyone besides this one friend of hers. I asked her about it, but she gave me some vague answers about gossip. The moment that took it too far, though, was when I came home last week and saw her outside talking on the phone. This wasn't out of the ordinary. I remember seeing my son on the floor crying alone. I was angry at my wife for just leaving him alone in the house, but when I went to pick him up and smelled the horrible stench coming from him, I was beyond furious. His diaper seemed like it hadn't been changed since that morning. I quickly changed his diaper and rushed outside with him in my arms. I was beyond mad. I snatched her phone from her hand and bolted back inside. I locked my wife outside to have a talk with this friend of hers alone. I had my suspicions about who it really was, and when I heard a male voice calling out her name and asking who was there, I immediately knew what was going on. He ended the call as soon as he heard my voice. I then proceeded to lock the front door to make sure my wife couldn't enter the house at all, and proceeded to screenshot as much of their chat as I could, and then sent them to myself before deleting them on her phone. About 5 minutes later, she was still banging on a glass door leading to the backyard. I reluctantly opened it, and was met with a smack in the face. Remember, all of this is happening while I'm holding my toddler in my arms. As soon as she realized what she just did, she apologized profusely, started crying, and tried to hug me. I pushed her away and told her to meet me at the dining table. I told my daughter to quickly take care of the baby so me and her mom could have a quick chat. I just kept it simple. I told her this was her only chance to even have a sliver of chance of getting me back. If she messed up this talk, it was over on the spot. No lies, nothing. She kept on trying to apologize and to say it wasn't that serious. I reminded her that she not only screwed me over, she could also have easily done serious harm to our son by leaving him alone in the house like that. And then simply asked who, for how long, and did they hook up. She replied with her ex-boss Daniel, 6 months, and she didn't answer the last one. So I kept on reminding her that this was her last chance. She then just simply nodded. I then asked her if they used protection. To this, she started crying and started begging me for forgiveness. She said she would block him then and there, would never contact him again. I could sleep with any woman I want from now on, yada yada. I guess Lisa heard a commotion and came downstairs. I told her to go back up, but she just walked to my wife and asked her if I knew about Daniel. Up to this point I was calm, but upon hearing this, I swear even I started tearing up. I asked Lisa if she knew all along, and she said yes. At this point I'm full on crying, and I asked her why she didn't tell me. She responded with, because unlike you, Daniel buys me the things I want without having to beg. I asked her how she could possibly do this to her dad. She responded with the "you're not my real dad" crap. My wife screamed at her upon hearing what she said. At that point, I couldn't bear any of this anymore. I just grabbed my son and got into the car. Me and my son are currently staying at my parents' house. I've basically been drinking myself to sleep every day. Thanks to the saints of a mother I have, my son is being taken care of right now. I'm beyond hurt. I've canceled my ex-daughter's private school tuitions, all her extracurricular activities, and I've contacted a divorce lawyer. He's going to serve my wife this Friday. My wife and Lisa have been blowing up my phone nonstop with apologies. I simply responded with, "Get a lawyer and tell that ungrateful thing of yours to start calling Daniel her dad. I'm disowning her." And then I blocked my wife. I didn't respond to Lisa. I just simply blocked her. I guess my wife told our friends what her and Lisa did, and now they have been texting me nonstop. They understand how I feel, but believe I'm going too far by divorcing my wife without hearing her out. They also keep telling me that disowning Lisa is definitely going too far, and she's only a kid and didn't understand what she was doing. I just can't get over the things she told me. I've worked my butt off to give my wife and daughter luxuries I could have only dreamt of as a kid, and this is how I get repaid? Lisa, 13 years old, is old enough to understand that hiding her mom's affair is bad, and definitely purposely used those words to hurt me. But a part of me believes that there is still hope. A few family counseling sessions later, and we can go back to living the life I once considered a fairy tale. I'm beyond destroyed by this whole situation. A part of me just wants to see them burn in hell, but the other part of me believes there is still hope. Am I really going too far? Is there still hope? Am I the a-hole for disowning my daughter and divorcing my wife? Now for the top comments. I would get a DNA test on your son just in case. Thank you for your concern, but I know my son is mine. He's literally a mini-me. Get an STD test just in case. Who knows how loyal that Daniel guy has been to your soon-to-be ex. OP, go ahead and take a paternity and STD test. Go screw up the affair partner. Or pretend to get back together. Take her word, go after her pals, and then divorce her. Hey, that's just me being a vindictive person. F that, don't take them back. Not the a-hole. Stop drinking, bro. It only makes the thoughts worse. I'm writing this drunk, but thank you. I know I need to stop at some point. I am so terribly sorry. Betrayal like this just trips us in half. Know that there are so many of us out here who had all kinds of horrendous experiences like this, and we have recovered and realized that a person we loved never existed. And then the love evaporates. It's very interesting. It takes about 2 years. We realized they lied to us every single day. They manipulated us so we wouldn't notice. They triangulated against us with the affair partner and here with the stepdaughter, which makes it spicier as an affair. Eventually, you will repair and heal, and it will all settle. It sounds like you'll probably pay some child support for a while. You'll get your poor baby tested and figure out what you want to do. And then you'll realize how messed up you were by what she intentionally did to you subversively. You will start to repair, and you'll start to rebuild, and your life will be better than ever. Hang in there. Thank you so much. I teared up reading that. Not the a-hole. I 100% get the hurt and feeling of betrayal. Your stepdaughter might only be 13, but was mature enough to hit you where it would hurt you the most, when you were already down. I would stick with the divorce. Cheating is a deal breaker for me. You may be able to salvage the relationship with your daughter, but it's going to take real remorse on her part, or you'll always wonder if she's only apologized to get back in your financial good books. Thank you. If I reconcile with her, I'm definitely not giving back the life she once had. She has to work for that. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not doing anything for my stepchildren anymore after being called names and filing for a divorce from my husband after he didn't back me up? I, 30 female, have been married to my 34 male husband for 6 years and he has twins, a boy and a girl, and they're 16 now. When we started dating/got married, we went to family therapy, and I made it clear that I was not trying to be their mother or replace their mother. Their mother hasn't been in their lives since they were about 8. Things have been great with us these past 6 years. They even started calling me mom when they were around 12/13. Recently, their bio mother came back into their lives, and they were really excited. Things were great for about 6 months, and then they started to call me by my real name. That hurt, but it's what they chose to do, and I never questioned it. Recently, they've been getting very disrespectful. They don't follow the curfew rules, they're not cleaning up after themselves, they're talking back to me, telling me I'm not their real mom, that I'm the reason she left. Which is not true. I didn't meet him until almost a year and a half after she left, and that now that she's back, they don't need me anymore. 3 weeks ago, there was a big blow-up where my stepson called me the B-word. I took his phone and told him to go to his room until his dad came back. But instead, he ran out and went to his mom's. She came over and it was a big argument. She tried to hit me, and I pushed her out of my house. My stepdaughter told me if I ever put my hands on her mom again, she'd kick my butt. They both went to their mom's place. After that, I haven't been very active. I usually take them to sports and activities. I don't wake them up for school, so they've been late a few times. I tell them to have their mom wake them up and take them. We were supposed to go to Disney World for their spring break this week, but I canceled everything. I told them and my husband, and I guess they thought I was bluffing. We were supposed to leave Thursday night, and when I didn't start the usual vacation roundup, they were shocked. They started saying I was jealous that their mom came back in their lives, that I'm a horrible person, I'm selfish. There was some name-calling and my husband was silent. I asked him if he was going to step in, and he said I was wrong for canceling. I left and went to stay in a hotel. He has been blowing my phone up asking me to come back, and yesterday he told me that their mother disappeared again, and they've been calling me crying and apologizing. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't feel like I'm part of their family, and they can't just cry and come back now that she disappeared. I told my husband that I want a divorce, and I'll be back over this week to get my things, but we have nothing to talk about. Yes, I know their mother was manipulating them. I never said otherwise. Yes, they are 16. That doesn't give them the right to treat me this way. Being 16 doesn't mean you get to be disrespectful and threaten me. I've always been in their corner. I know their feelings matter in this, but I'm also a person with feelings. I'm not only considering or moving forward with this divorce based on how the children acted, it is also that my husband did not back me up in this. If I can't count on him to help me navigate this tough situation that we were all going through, then why should I stay? That does not mean that I should be treated the way I was being treated. That is not normal 16-year-old behavior. To threaten me? Call me vile names? I just need time for myself. And I don't want an apology just because their bio mother ran out on them again. I want an apology because they really mean it. And I don't believe anyone can be truly sorry 2 days after their mother vanished again. I would never just abandon them, but I do need time for myself because my feelings were disregarded. Yes, I am an adult, but I still have feelings that were hurt and need time for myself. I never ask or expect them to be perfect. I never expect them to be the most mature people. But I am allowed to be hurt and take time for myself during all of this. They have feelings and so do I. I love them very much. They are my children, but this is a very complicated situation. This is not because they called me a bee. I've been called worse. I'm a woman. This is ultimately about my husband not backing me up during this situation. And yes, I am hurt that they called me that. I'm allowed to be. It hurts even worse coming from two people who I love dearly and would never hurt or want any harm to come to them. Not a-hole. If your husband stepped up and actually parented his children, then he wouldn't be looking forward to his second divorce and being a single parent. If bio mom hadn't done her disappearing act again, I wonder if he'd even be calling Opie to beg her to come back. Bio mom knew she won, so she checked out. It was clear what bio mom was doing, but to disappear after she convinced her kids to blow up their home life just seems so messed up. I can see doing that if bio mom had plans to get her family back, but to leave when they need her? I hope these kids realize what kind of person their mom really is, and that their dad gets them the help they need to deal with this. OP, you're not wrong to leave. The moment the disrespect started, your husband should have stepped up. To hell with all of them. Go find someone without kids and live your best life. Don't be talked into going back. They don't love you. They love what you can do for them. Big difference. Oof, hit the nail right on the head. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to allow my daughter around my brother-in-law for something he did years ago and leaving my husband because of it? Back when my brother-in-law was 28, he had a relationship with a 15-year-old girl. He ended up in prison for 12 years on kidnapping and charges. He just got out 2 years ago and moved back to our home state 3 months back. Now, my husband and I have a 13, almost 14-year-old daughter, his stepdaughter technically, and I absolutely refuse to allow my brother-in-law around her. Everyone in the family is extremely mad at me because he did his time and paid his dues. They have tried convincing me several times that what my brother-in-law did was a one-time thing, and that since my brother-in-law is mentally delayed due to childhood trauma, that he really didn't understand that what he did was wrong, because mentally he was on the same page as the 15-year-old girl. I refuse to buy into the excuses, and have stood firm behind not allowing this man near my kid. I don't care if he is reformed and found Jesus. I don't care if he openly admitted it was a mistake and is apologetic. He still violated a kid who is close in age to my daughter. Well, yesterday the family called us and said they needed to have a family discussion and asked to come over, which I allowed. My mother-in-law, father-in-law, and sister-in-law were all here and said that our niece's 12th birthday is coming up next week and that they want us to attend, but said that brother-in-law would be there. They asked that I put up with it for a few hours for my niece's sake and said, "We will make sure that John isn't around your daughter. We will pay close attention," and basically begged me to just put it behind me for just a few hours. I said, absolutely not. They all have this belief that he is reformed anyhow, so I don't trust them to keep an eye on my kid because they all think he's cured and wouldn't do that to family. They left angry anyways. Well, I walked by the bathroom last night and heard my husband crying. I knocked on the door and found him sitting on the edge of the tub. He unleashed a world of hurt on me, saying he is freaking sick of being caught in the middle of all this BS and feels like I'm making him choose between his entire family and me because his brother will be at all events from this point forward, so he knows that he won't be able to go because of it. He said that he is angry at all of us and is starting to hate us all because we won't shut the heck up and stop giving him ultimatums. I haven't given him any. I simply walked out and went to my mother's with my kid. I know he's hurt right now, but I will never tolerate the lack of concern for my own child after what that man did. Am I wrong here? Now for the top comments. Not a-hole. You need to keep your daughter safe. If he is developmentally delayed and did not know what he did was wrong, chances are he is in the same place mentally now, and it could happen again. Tell your husband he can attend family gatherings without you if his brother will be there, then he does not have to choose. Not only that, depending on the state they're in, he is a registered offender, which means depending on level, if I had to be a betting person, I would say the highest level and for life, he can't be around any child under 18. So really, it would be a violation of his registration if he was around a child that is underage, given his prior convictions. I wonder if the parents of the birthday girl's friends are aware there will be a predator at the party where they will be dropping their children off? I guarantee they don't. When I was 10, I went to a birthday party and there was a creepy uncle type just being super freaking weird the whole night. And then someone came late, and as soon as he walked in, he started yelling at the dude and the mother of the birthday boy. And then he went to all the parents and started telling them that the guy was a pedo who wasn't allowed around children. The bastard molested his own kids. To say they almost turned into a mob to attack this lady and a creep is an understatement. Am I the a-hole for not leaving an equal share of my inheritance to my stepchildren as my biological child in my will? Plus mini update. I, 55 male, married my wife, 52 female, 2 decades ago, bringing with her 2 children from her previous marriage, 27 female and 30 male. We also have a child of our own, 19 female. I am the primary breadwinner. My wife has always been a stay-at-home mom to raise all 3 children, and since they have left, continues to run the house, and I'm more than happy with this arrangement. Most of our joint assets therefore came from my income, as my wife came to the marriage with no assets. We are aware that wife's ex-husband has had a windfall of inheritance money, as conveyed by my stepchildren. This means that my stepchildren are said to inherit that windfall if not squandered. Their paternal grandmother and other family members are still in the picture with possible inheritance that may yet be passed down. Conversely, my biological daughter would not benefit from that inheritance money and would only benefit from whatever inheritance I can give her, as no other relatives in the picture that could support her or leave additional inheritance money. I have therefore chosen, with support from my wife, to will a larger portion of inheritance to my biological daughter. For example, if my wife died in an accident tomorrow, we would be leaving about $900,000 in assets to 19 female, and $25,000 each to 27 female and 30 male. 19 female would have no family support, thus relying entirely on the inheritance money, whereas 27 female and 30 male will still have other family members that can support them. If ex-husband died tomorrow, 27 female and 30 male are likely to receive $250,000 each in assets if not more, and will still have us to support them when needed, as we currently do. When we discussed this with 27 female and 30 male, emphasizing that they are set to receive inheritance from ex-husband and potentially others on his side of the family, they determined this was unfair, that my assets should be split evenly between the three of them. I retorted that if their father died, would 19 female get any of that inheritance? And they said no, because he is not her father. To be fair, they do look up to me and consider me as a father figure even though I am not their father. Therefore, I am wondering if I am the a-hole? Now for the top advice before the mini update. Not the a-hole, but I see no reason why you ever should have discussed it with the 3 kids in the first place. You and your wife are in agreement. Why ask the kids for their opinion? Especially since you're only in your 50s. I don't think it's to get their opinion. I think it's so everyone is on the same page in case anything happens. Deaths can tear a family apart, especially when there are surprises in the will. I think it's smart, even if the stepkids didn't like what they heard. Exactly. When people have these conversations, it's usually an effort to avoid anybody being blindsided at a time they already lost their loved one, or an attempt to explain the reasons behind the decision to avoid any animosity while everyone is grieving. I'm going through this with my grandmother right now, and her reasoning is that it's important to her that she knows if there's anything of hers that's really special to us. For example, I want her books, because she and I are both avid readers, and even though we like different genres, having them would bring me happiness and make me think of her. None of us is gonna come out and say that stuff to her, so if she didn't ask, she wouldn't know. You are likely going to get crap on here, but I'm going to say not the a-hole. The sub seems to think step-parents have to be perfect and there should be no differences ever. First off, I personally am fine with step-kids getting less of an inheritance. I say this as someone who grew up in a blended family. Throw in the face that their father has a totally separate inheritance for them and they'll have more anyway. I'd say your stepkids are just greedy. Also, there are 2 adults contributing to the inheritance, mom and dad, and not just mom. So at minimum, a fair split is that the youngest gets 2 times what the older children get. But I think it's fair to skew it to try to give all 3 kids roughly the same in the end when factoring in their dad's contribution. Not the a-hole. Very telling that they said no sharing their inheritance because their father is not her father. How is that different from them and you? They are being greedy, OP. You can tell because they think it's unfair when you do the exact same thing to them that they want to do to her. Now for the mini update. I've been looking at some really insightful comments about how to calculate what to give my stepchildren, with a number of comments suggesting I do need to give more. 1 or 2 people have suggested a formula of first splitting assets in half, considering 50-50 between wife and myself, and then dividing the 50 between the 3 children, essentially giving my stepchildren about 1/6 each. However, as noted above, there is more to consider here than a simple division, such as support from others. But also, some of this is physical assets, like a house, that cannot be simply considered as cash value. But it is clear that we, wife and I, in this joint decision, should be willing a higher amount to my stepchildren. Next story. Am I the a-hole for throwing away the expensive whiskey my brother got me for my 40th? I'm 40 male, just turned 40 last week. I'm divorced and have 2 teenage kids with my ex-wife, 17 male and 14 female. My whole family came to my girlfriend's apartment last Saturday for my birthday party. My parents, some aunts and uncles, some cousins, my 3 brothers with their families, my 2 kids, and my girlfriend's 15-year-old son who lives with us. I am a recovered alcoholic, and I've been sober for 6 years now. Alcohol absolutely ruined my life. It destroyed my marriage and nuked my relationship with my kids for years. So I don't allow alcohol in my home now, for anyone. It just isn't served nor tolerated here. My entire family knows this very well as they know my entire history with it. For my 40th, my brother bought me a very expensive bottle of whiskey. It had writing on it, a very heavy bottle and very old whiskey. So it probably cost him a couple $100. When he gave me the bottle, I was shocked and said, I don't drink, but thanks for the gift. He then opened the bottle and started pouring shots in plastic cups for everyone. My daughter had a panic attack at the smell of the alcohol, which I am painfully aware is my fault, and I will never forgive myself for it. So I told my brother to take the alcohol out on the balcony and just leave it there. He wouldn't do it and took a shot of the whiskey. I told him to seriously stop it, and he proceeded to pour the whiskey. He then said I'm acting like a sober saint now, when I ruined everyone's birthdays for years with my drinking. I told him to come to the hallway with me and talk it out. He refused and put a glass of whiskey in my hand. I took the trash can, threw the whiskey bottle in it and the plastic cups and took the trash out. My brother then stormed off and my mom followed him. She later called me, demanding an apology for disrespecting my brother like that. My dad said I was being overly sensitive, and some of my other family members also agree. Am I the a-hole here? Not the a-hole. What your brother did is really, really awful and cruel. Possibly the worst gift I've ever heard of someone giving another, especially as he is aware of your struggles and recovery. Congratulations on recovery and standing up for yourself and your family. And I can't believe the rest of the family supporting the brother and calling Opie disrespectful. It's a bizarre world. I know. It's basically a miracle Opie is safely in recovery with that kind of support system. Kudos to Opie. I knew a couple where the husband was an alcoholic but tried very hard to stay sober. Every time he had a few successful weeks, the wife would buy wine to celebrate and ask him to have one glass with her. Just one glass. You can do that. One really don't need enemies with family like that. Not the a-hole. Brother was being horrendously terrible / taunting. Read a room, dude. Especially the pain this caused the kids. Not a situation to double down on your bottle flex. Mom and anyone upset at Opie can pound sand and get their juice on their own time. Opie should have drain poured it to prevent them from dumpster diving afterwards. I say this as someone who drinks. The level of disrespect shown Opie here is off the charts. Now contact a lot of them. He should have poured a whiskey on his brother's dumb head. Like, what the heck did I just read? I hope Opie goes no contact with him and everyone enabling his brother because holy smokes. Next story. Am I the a-hole for breaking my grandma's heart? My 16 female dad is a horrible person. I'm sorry, but he just is. He isn't all that terrible to me or my brother, 17 male, but he's horrible to our mom. Growing up, it was very obvious that our dad saw our mom as lesser than. He'd yell at her over everything and made her responsible for everything. Cleaning, taking care of us, etc. My mom never said anything and tried her hardest to make it seem like everything was okay. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I'm too scared to stand up to my dad. I always freeze. My brother, on the other hand, does not care. He yells back and isn't afraid of anything. I think my brother realized I'm too scared to protect our mom and recently told us that he's going to college nearby and will be commuting as the college doesn't require first years to live on campus. My parents were confused and my dad was a little upset. He kept telling him that he's going to miss out and he'll regret it, but my brother didn't budge. Mom even told him that he should go and that she'll be fine, but my brother just said that they're lucky he's even going to college. Well, yesterday we got a surprise visit from our grandma, Dad's mom. She never visits, and when she does, she also just treats my mom the same as Dad, so we weren't very excited. But we were civil, because, well, if we aren't, then she'll find a way to blame our mom. It was okay at first, but then she asked my mom, "Is this what you wanted? Are you proud of yourself?" My mom started to shake, but my brother immediately got in between them. Grandma just rolled her eyes and asked my brother if he was really going to throw away his life just because he thinks his mom's too fragile to survive without him. My brother didn't say anything. I then spoke up and said, "It's not because of Mom, it's because of you and Dad. You guys are horrible, and you really need to get the heck out." My grandma immediately started yelling at me. She said that she expected better, and said that I'm rude, disrespectful, and bratty. She then told my mom that she raised horrible kids, before leaving angrily. I know I was just standing up for my mom, and my brother keeps telling I'm fine, but I feel guilty. My grandma apparently adores me according to my dad, and I really broke her heart. And it's not like I made things better, maybe even worse. And now my dad is expecting me to apologize, but I don't know if I want to. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Your dad is just manipulating you by saying you broke her heart. Doesn't sound like she has one to break anyway. For real. My grandma apparently adores me according to my dad. Really? Because he just called you rude, disrespectful, and bratty, and said you were a horrible kid. I know it's awful to finally see her for who she truly is, but she only liked you because you didn't stand up to her or your dad, and let them walk all over you. The moment you spoke up with them, they both turned on you. That's what abusers do. Not the a-hole. Yeah, seems like the father inherited the lack of heart as well. The father and grandmother are the only a-holes in this situation. But I hope Opie and her brother tried to formulate a plan to help their mother to leave, because she's probably dealing with a lot more abuse than they realize. especially if she's literally shaking with fear in response to something like her old mother-in-law getting pissy with her. Not stay whole. While perhaps not the most tactful thing to say, it sounds like this has been building for a long time, and you are human. Your feelings and emotions are justified. I highly suspect that your father is using your grandmother's broken heart as a form of emotional manipulation. I would wager this is something he's done countless times to you, your brother, and your mother. Have you spoken to a trusted adult or a therapist about some of the things happening at home? Neither you nor your brother should have to feel like it's your job to protect your mother. It has been building, and I guess I also took out my feelings regarding my dad out on her as well. And I don't know. My brother always told me not to tell anyone and that he'll handle it. So I guess I haven't. I think my mom's siblings once tried asking me about the situation at home when I was younger. But again, my brother said not to say anything, so I didn't. Thinking back, I think they know something's up. Not the a-hole. Your father and grandmother owe you, your mother, and your brother an apology. And I hope someday your mother will leave this mess. I hope my mom does too. It's hard though. He doesn't give her any access to money and she hasn't had a job in years, since my dad made her quit, so I can't blame her. My brother and I have been saving up though, and my brother's planning on taking extra classes so he can get through college as fast as he can and land a good job. I have faith it'll work. I doubt we'll ever get apologies though. I figured your father was the typical controlling a-hole. I hope your mother doesn't feel obligated to stay with your father for her children's sake, because that is fairly common. Last story. Am I the a-hole for making my parents choose between me and my ex/former friend? I was best friends with Jen from preschool through 9th grade. Her home life was pretty rough, and she practically lived at my house, and my parents called her the daughter they never had. When we were in 9th grade, I asked her out. It took some convincing, but she eventually said yes. She broke up with me over text the day after our date. She barely went to school, didn't text, and wasn't at my house at all the next few weeks. She eventually showed up at my house in the middle of the night. I took her in, no questions asked. Then she left in the middle of the night a few weeks later. I admit I didn't love having her around. It didn't make it easy on her. But apparently her leaving was hard on everybody. My parents even had to go to therapy. Last year, I moved out for college, but I was still planning on coming to visit. A few months after I moved out, Jen showed up at my parents' house pregnant and with a baby. They took her in again, then called me and my brothers asking how we feel about her staying with them. My brothers were okay with it, but I can't forgive her for what she did a few years ago. My parents let her stay anyways, but said they had conditions on her staying with them, like her going to therapy and either enrolling in college or getting a job. I told them I still wasn't okay with it. We argued a bit and I told them I wouldn't visit if she was living there. She's still there, but I held true to my word and I haven't visited since. They're trying to get me to come for Christmas, but I won't be there if Jen is living there. So now they're calling me petty and saying I need to forgive her, but I think I have a right to be upset. So at 15 you were told no, and then after bullying her, which you refer to as it took some convincing, she eventually said yes. You had one single date, which you harassed her into agreeing to. Then you referred to her not wanting a second date, which she also didn't want the first date either by the way, as breaking up with you. She then spent weeks avoiding you, which you still didn't pick up on. You don't say how old you are now, but it's clear you still resent her for not wanting to date you. You're the a-hole. You forgot the part where Opie didn't love having her around and didn't make it easy on her. Meaning that Opie took a home life that could potentially have been stable and safe for a girl whose original home life seems anything but, and turned it into a living hell for her. All because she turned down a second date after having been bullied into a first one. Opie, I disagree with your family. You don't need to forgive anything, because you have nothing to forgive. She did nothing wrong. What you need to do is beg and grovel and pray for forgiveness from both her and your family for everything you have done to make this girl's life a living hell. If you can't do that, keep staying away. It's better for everyone, especially that poor girl. Not to mention how low she must have been feeling to willingly return to the home of a boy who made it a living hell for her. Opie, she was desperate enough for help from the only people, read your parents, who showed her any amount of compassion and kindness that she decided dealing with your pathetic butt was worth it.